Well, the UK needs an industrial policy rethink. That's according to the IPPR. Now, that is the Institute for Public Policy Research. A new report from this think tank is recommending that the government extend fair pay agreements to industries crucial to its national missions, such as house building, childcare, and rail workers. For example, those and estimates are suggesting that the UK will need around 225,000 new building workers to meet that demand. I'm joined now by Joseph Evans, the IPPR researcher who wrote this report. Joseph, I'm just really interested in the timing. Why now, and what were the findings? Why did we need these reforms?
Yeah, well, we know that the government has a series of really ambitious national missions for the country. So economic growth, you've already talked about, and improving opportunity, creating a clean power system by 2030. But also our analysis shows that actually there are really pressing challenges in the labour market, which are likely to hold the government back from meeting those missions. So like you've mentioned, the shortage of construction workers. We know the government wants to build 1.5 million new homes. It also wants to build a swathe of new infrastructure, including a potential third runway at Heathrow. If it's going to do that, it really needs to boost skills in the construction sector. And actually, fair pay agreements, this kind of negotiation, collective negotiation at a sectoral level, is quite an effective means of doing that. We know that because it already happens in the engineering construction industry, where an agreement has existed for more than 40 years, completely voluntarily without the involvement of the government,
Joseph,
but because it works for both business and workers.
Can I just jump in there? When we say fair pay, what are we talking about? Because why are we still talking about, say, fair pay? Why does there have to be a reform of this? Why aren't people being paid fairly today in the UK? That's my point. Or are we talking about competitive pay?
So I think what we're really talking about is that the labour market in key sectors that will contribute to the government's mission delivery actually don't work. It doesn't work for kind of businesses or for workers. So yes, there are problems of kind of low pay, and childcare is one of the sectors we look at, where pay actually, really affects businesses' ability to recruit and then to retain workers in that sector. But it's also about training standards. So it's about construction businesses being able to kind of attract workers and then kind of that skill supply, which means that there is enough construction workers to build the infrastructure that we need. So fair pay agreements is a kind of branding package. The government calls them fair pay agreements, and it's been called that in other countries as well. But really, actually, what they mean is kind of a holistic agreement which covers pay, working conditions, and training standards. And the aim really is to get these labour markets working as effectively as possible for the workers who, their pay and conditions should rise if these are successful, but actually for businesses as well, so that they have that security of labour supply, which means that they can kind of pursue their business models.
Okay, I suppose it's also a realistic paycheck and conditions, I suppose. If they don't do it, if Labour don't do this now, what will happen?
Well, I think really they'll struggle to meet their missions. So you've already mentioned the 225,000 construction workers that are missing. I mean, there's no way we can build 1.5 million homes and the infrastructure the government wants to build without attracting more construction workers. So I think we'll see the government miss its targets, which would be challenging for the government's own missions, but also for the country. And I think really what we're talking about is this is a kind of strategic approach to changing industrial relations. We're not talking about reforming wholesale the UK's industrial relations system, but actually really building on what the government is already doing in adult social care and school support staff, making the labour markets work effectively for businesses and for workers. And we know that this is an effective model because it actually already happens. It already happens in the UK, in engineering, construction, and in the North Sea. It happens in countries around Europe like Germany, Sweden, Denmark, and others. And actually, it used to happen in the UK as well. We used to have a system of sectoral collective negotiation called the Wages Councils, which Winston Churchill introduced at the start of the 20th century when he was president of the Board of Trade. So yeah, we're really talking about a strategic approach to resolving labour market challenges to support the government's target.
Joseph, thank you very much indeed for sharing that research.